This is WFYI News Now. It's June 16th, and I'm Abriana Herron. On today's show, an effort to make healthcare more accessible to formerly incarcerated people. A group responsible for shaping the future of public schools will hold meetings throughout the summer. And an interview with Lauren Roberts, who was forcibly removed from City Council chambers last week while attempting to speak about her experience inside Mayor Hogsett's campaign.
As Ayanna Pressley, the congresswoman from Massachusetts, says, the people closest to the pain are closest to the solution. And that's, I think, the tactic that council would be smart to take at this point.
Those stories coming up. But first, thousands gathered at the Indiana Statehouse in downtown Indianapolis over the weekend, part of the No Kings protests that took place nationwide. As WFYI's Ben Thorpe reports, protesters said they were concerned about many things under the Trump administration, from LGBTQ protections to immigration.
Protesters filled the Statehouse's south lawn and marched around the block for hours, even as it began pouring rain in Indianapolis. Scott Johnson organized the protest.
So this is a generalized protest that is around the idea that what is going on in America today is wrong.
Michelle Eckert is an Indianapolis resident. She said she was happy to see how many people were in attendance.
I am so proud of this community and just everybody coming together. It's emotional.
Indianapolis was one of an estimated 2,000 cities and towns across the country to host a No Kings protest on Saturday. I'm Ben Thorpe.
Healthcare often isn't top of mind for people re-entering the community after incarceration. It can be hard to access, expensive, and overshadowed by other urgent needs. But as WFYI's Farah Anderson reports, a new partnership on Indianapolis's near north side is trying to change that.
The nonprofit PACE, or Public Advocates in Community Reentry, helps people impacted by the criminal legal system. For many of their clients, getting health care can be hard. That's why PACE is partnering with Aspire Indiana Health to bring services straight to them through a mobile clinic called Macy. Mary Giesel is the community engagement manager for Aspire. She says showing up at PACE makes a difference.
So that helps to eliminate some of the barriers of not trusting where to go and how to get there. So being right outside their door makes it even easier.
The clinic will be parked outside the PACE building once a month through December. I'm Farah Anderson.
A group responsible for shaping the future of public schools in Indianapolis will be holding meetings throughout the summer. From WFYI's Education Desk, Sydney Dauphiné has more on the upcoming Indianapolis Local Education Alliance public meetings.
The ILEA is a group of parents and community leaders tasked with planning how Indianapolis Public Schools will share resources, transportation, and funding with charter schools. This comes after Indiana lawmakers changed policy related to public and charter funding. The ILEA has until the end of the year to submit their recommendations to the state. Because the group is exempt from the state's open door law, they may hold additional meetings in private. The 3 open meetings will allow for public comment and will be held at the City-County building downtown on June 25th, July 23rd, and August 20th at 6 p.m. I'm Sydney Dauphiné.
And for our final story today. Last Monday night, the Indianapolis City-County Council meeting erupted into chaos as Lauren Roberts was forcibly removed from the chambers while attempting to speak about her experiences inside Mayor Hogsett's campaign. She was the first woman to accuse former Hogsett Chief of Staff Thomas Cook of sexual harassment, resulting in an independent investigation into the response. WFYI's Jill Sheridan sat down with Roberts, who was unable to finish her statement after Council President Vop Osili cut her off for time and had her removed.
What was it that you wanted to say on Monday night that you were unable to?
Yeah, I'd say top line, it's that survivors have consistently not been heard. They being the council, as well as the state Democratic Party, are putting out a lot of very polished statements from crisis agency, PR agencies, and proposing all kinds of policy. But as we keep saying over and over, please pause and really listen to us and let this be a survivor-led, survivor-centered, trauma-informed process. Because as Ayanna Pressley, the Congresswoman from Massachusetts, says, the people closest to the pain are closest to the solution. And that's, I think, the tactic that council would be smart to take at this point.
So, of course, all this comes after the release of a report that dug into the sexual harassment accusations made by you and 2 other women. I was watching that night when the report was released to the public. You were on the phone. What was that reaction that you were having in that moment? I could tell that, that you were upset with what you were hearing.
I was heartbroken. It was really devastating because, first of all, Caroline and I, through our lawyer, had asked for advanced copies of the report. I also appealed to Krista Carlino, the chairwoman of that committee, directly. And on Labor Day or the day after, she finally called me back after a couple days after I texted her, and she said, no one's getting it early. I will ask. And I don't know who she was going to ask because she's in charge. But that meant that we had no idea what was coming. We didn't know until the public was hearing it for the first time. We also were told by Krista and some others that the report would go live at 5:30 Eastern time online. We couldn't find it. That's why I called. At first, I called on Jesse Brown's phone, which I believe he handed to Counselor Nielsen, who tried to hand it to Krista. She hung up on me. And that's when my friend Elise Schrock, who was also attacked on Monday night, by the way, she held up the FaceTime and refused to put it down. And even though I called in and was begging not to disrupt or, be a troublemaker, which is how they keep treating me, but to say we still don't have a copy. Like at this most basic level, this is a very poor way to treat people who have trauma. And then, of course, the report itself just has glaring omissions, very clear bias in favor of the mayor and his allies. It's very clearly misogynistic in the way it characterizes our statements as claims, the mayor's as facts. It left out the fact that the mayor himself has some bad behavior. So all around, I would say it was just a mess.
This has been a year as well since you and Caroline came forward. And at that time, policies, measures, people talking about, ways that we could see change. Again, we're hearing that now as it relates to, the administration, as it relates to the release of this report. Do you have any faith that these fixes will help?
Well, first of all, it's been a year since we went on the record in the press. I've been trying to report what happened to me since 2017. The actual abuse happened in 2014 and 2015. Caroline went to the mayor, I think, at first in 2023. So this has been many years in the making. As far as the fixes, I'm not an HR expert. I'm not an attorney, but I know that this process has not been survivor-led or survivor-centered. There are many advocates out there who can advise them on this stuff. But until they actually listen to us and get an idea of what went wrong in a way that isn't through the Fisher-Phillips report, which we know is incomplete and biased, I don't think these fixes are actual fixes. They're Band-Aids. They're people trying to move on and get the narrative out of the press, and we don't want to let that happen.
Thank you, Lauren, so much for coming in.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Our full-length interview with Lauren Roberts and former Sustainability Director Morgan Mickelson, who also spoke at the meeting, can be found at WFYI.org. That's all for today's episode of WFYI News Now. Our podcast is produced by Drew Dodlin and Zach Bundy, with support from the news team at WFYI and public media journalists across the state. Our news director is Sarah Neal Estes. Kendall Antron produced our music, and I'm your host, Abriana Herron. If you like today's episode, remember to subscribe and share, and follow WFYI on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube to check in on our newsroom throughout the day. Thanks for listening. We'll be back tomorrow.